Welcome, everyone, to the fourth episode of True Love. This is your host, Maya, and whenever this message is reaching you, I hope that you're having a wonderful day. Now, today's episode is titled SWOT Analysis for Self-Examination. So today we want to discuss what a SWOT analysis is and why you should do a SWOT analysis for self-examination, also known as doing that inner work. Part of that self-love process is making sure that you are examining yourself and going deep into finding out who you are, what you're all about, and if there are things that you don't like or there are things that you want to improve on, you can change those things and decide to come up with a game plan on how you would go about changing those things. So as with all things, I always want to define the terms first because I want us to really understand what something means before we try to apply it. So I'm all about looking it up and getting the true, the definition, and then going deeper and getting that personal definition as it relates to you doing that personal inner work. So some of you may be asking, what is a SWOT analysis? And, some of you may have heard of the term before, some of you may not have. But a SWOT analysis is defined as a study undertaken by an organization to identify its internal strengths and weaknesses, as well as its external opportunities and threats. So, a SWOT analysis is an acronym, and it's spelled SWOT, and it stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So a SWOT analysis is really a business practice that, as the definition has stated, an organization uses to identify their strengths and then tries to identify their weaknesses, or tries to identify the things that they're doing great and the things that they may need improvement on. It also helps them to discover any areas where they can improve, would be opportunities, and threats are risk factors or anything that, can stop them from achieving the success that the business wants. So I'm saying that we shouldn't only do a SWOT analysis just for organizations or for businesses. I'm saying we should do it for ourselves. And as with all things, I'm always going to tie it back to my faith. And my faith is biblically based. So I'm going to be giving some biblical examples or biblical scriptures to support this. And as I always say, I'm not here to sway you. I'm not here to convince you. I'm not here to change your mind about anything. I'm really here just to give you another perspective so that you can apply some of the things that you learn here on these podcast episodes into your life to help you on that personal development journey that you're taking. And if this is all about you becoming a better version of yourself, then you really need to start with a SWOT analysis. And just to give you some background, I have heard the term SWOT analysis before. And I'm a business-oriented person career-wise, so I've used SWOT analysis. I have implemented SWOT analysis goals to make sure that the company continues to achieve its goals, its plans, sticks to budget, etc. So I'm familiar with the business terminology of SWOT analysis, but I never really thought to use it for personal use until recently. And this is the thing that is so beautiful about when you always go back to your source of faith for everything, because you want to make sure when you are doing this inner work that you are not allowing your biases or your perspective. You know how people always say you only see things through your lenses or through your perspective. You can't see it from mine. Sometimes you have to see things from another perspective to open up to another ideology or another way of looking at something, because it's actually like your particular view is actually blocking you from proceeding. So, it was brought to my attention that I should do a SWOT analysis on myself. And I was thinking, SWOT analysis on myself? Like, SWOT analysis is for business. Why would I do this personally? But as with all things, when you keep getting a recurring message, a recurring idea that keeps popping up, you realize that this is not coincidental. And maybe in another episode, I will cover coincidences. I personally don't believe in coincidences. I believe that everything is supposed to happen the way it happens, whether we can wrap our head around the situation or understand why it's happening. Sometimes it's not there in that moment. But when you get out of that moment and you're away from that moment, you tend to have that, what they say, hindsight is 20/20. You tend to have that clarity once you get out of the situation and realize the reason why it had to happen. So that's just to give you some background. This is not an ideology that I started off with. And this is exactly why I talk about giving you another perspective, because sometimes we have been taught wrong or our own view is wrong, and we need to change it in order to make those changes and become a better version of ourselves. So what I want to do is kind of like go through each letter in the acronym so that we can really go deep into what a strength is, what a weakness is, what an opportunity is, and what a threat is. So starting off with strengths. And in a SWOT analysis, strengths are qualities and abilities that you have, which are an advantage to you and your success. So in other words, these are the things that you are good at. These are the things that are effortless for you. These are the things that while someone else might have to work hard to do these things or to have these qualities and abilities, it is like you don't even have to think about it. It's natural. So these are the things that you're good at, you're great at. Everyone always tells you that you're good at these things. So your strengths are really like your qualities that people really love about you, or it's what attracts people to you. It's what people come to you for. Meaning, like, when people want advice, they want advice on what your strengths are, what you are strong in. People come to you for the things that you know that you know. They don't come to you for the things that you're still figuring out. They come to you when you know what you know, because they can learn from that. You're like a mentor to them, or a person of value on that topic or in that area of interest. So the strengths are the things that, helps you to be the best version of yourself, as well as helps you to serve other people and be a help to others. So what are examples of strengths? Example of strengths could be you're ambitious, you're a go-getter, you're a great listener, you're confident, intelligent, things good qualities and good characteristics that a person can have. It could be, you know, anything that a person is good at. It could be, you know, you're great with doing hair, or, you know, oh, you just, you know, you play that instrument really well. Those are your strengths. You know, it could be anything. And when you do a SWOT analysis, you really want to do this in a way that is, you know, geared towards your personal. So more of what your personality is, and more of, you know, the things that you know you're good at when it comes to dealing with people, even the things that you might be good at work. These are the qualities that you brought to work that kind of made you the perfect candidate for that position. So it's really part of your personality and characteristics within your personality that provides success for you, that you had, like, you know, that gives you an advantage over others. So, you know, like, I can use myself as an example. If my children have a math problem or something math related, they'll come to me. But if it's something health related or science based, they'll go to their dad. Like, they know the strengths that we have. So that's what I'm trying to say. Like, for me, math is effortless. For him, health and science, stuff like that, effortless. So that's what I'm trying to say. Like, you know what your strengths are. You know the things that, you know, come easy, or I would say natural for you. So as you know, I always like to reference this with biblical scripture, so that I always go back to my source of faith, so that we can, you know, really just bring it home and show you that even your source of faith will back up these suggestions and principles. So I'm just going to go to Romans 12:3. And Romans 12:3 reads as, and it's and this is NIV, and it's titled Humble Service in the Body of Christ. That's how it's titled, this section. Verse 3. So again, Romans 12, verse 3, NIV reads, "For by the grace given me, I say to every one of you, do not think of yourself more highly than you ought, but rather think of yourself with sober judgment in accordance with the faith God has distributed to each of you." So when you're thinking about your strengths, you know, don't overdo it. Like, you know, when I say don't overdo it, I mean, be completely honest and put down the strengths that you really have. Don't put down the strengths that you want to have but don't have yet, or the things that you want to have but it's not really there yet, or you're working on. That you can put more in an area of opportunity when we get to that section and we talk about opportunities. But you really want to be honest and put down the things that make you strong, because that's going to help you when you're trying to set boundaries. So when you're trying to set boundaries in your relationships, you have to know all 4 areas of this SWOT analysis so that you can help yourself be the best version of you in all relationships, and it can help the people that you're in relationships with, you know, interact with you appropriately and in a safe manner and in a way that makes the relationship blossom and flourish. So that's what this is really about. So you want to be completely honest in all of the categories here: the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats. So let's move on to weaknesses. Now, a weakness is defined as inadequate qualities in a person's character that is regarded as a disadvantage or flaw. So, you know, some people say weaknesses, like I don't have no weaknesses. I think everyone has weaknesses. We really should admit this. You may not want to admit it out loud sometimes. You may not want to admit it to people, but you do have weaknesses. I have weaknesses. We all have weaknesses. And whether we realize we have them or not, other people realize them, you know. And if you have good friends around you, they will tell you where you have an area where you need to work on. And that's really what a weakness is things you need to improve on. You know, there are some weaknesses, like if you think about it from like a physical aspect, like, you know, instead of a personal aspect, but more like a physical aspect, like, you know, if someone has allergies, that's a weakness. They can't eat certain foods because they have a bad reaction. They can't change that weakness. You know, so there are some weaknesses that cannot be changed, but for personal development purposes, we do have weaknesses, and these should be the things that you can improve on, or areas where you know that, you know, it's an issue, it's a flaw that you have. You know, for some people, weaknesses could be they're and too nice. It could be, you know, a weakness could be that they like sugary foods. You know, depending on it, let's say this was on your personal development, you want to eat healthier. It's one of the things that you want to be a better version of you, but you have a problem with, you know, sweet treats. So you don't want to, you know that's a weakness of yours. So you have to work on it. You know, a weakness could be you don't listen that well. So when you're in relationships or when you're at work or when someone's talking to you, you don't remember all the details. You know, I'm just giving live examples of what a weakness could be. You know, it could be anything that you feel that you need improvement on. You know, it could be that you jump to conclusions. So when people are talking, or you could be, you overtalk people when they're talking. Like, it could be anything. You know, I'm just trying to give you certain examples that some people may have in your life, or some that you may have seen in others, you know. So be honest, again, about your weaknesses and realize that these are things that are a disadvantage to you. So when you're looking at this and you're doing your personal SWOT analysis, don't look at these as things that you will always have on this list. Look at weaknesses as something that you have now identified through self-examination. Through the SWOT analysis, you're identifying areas where you want to improve. You know, it could be that, you know, sometimes you can have a mean attitude, or you're one of those, like some people, they just are naturally pessimistic. That could be a negative quality or flaw to someone else. Like, they're optimistic, so they don't, you know, pessimistic people, you know, don't work for them, and they consider that a flaw. So sometimes these things that you notice about yourself, you just put it here. And if it's stuff that you, once you see it on the paper, you're able to, or even if you're taking these notes in a phone, a laptop, or a computer, you're able to see, okay, these are the areas where I need to work on. And later on in this podcast episode, we'll talk about how often you should do these things. But, you know, really, you just need to really get the whole SWOT analysis process down. And you really need to take the time to do each one of these categories to get to the point where you're going to start coming up with an action plan. So, you know, weaknesses are not bad necessarily. When I say bad, I mean like they're not bad things as far as, you know, something that cannot be improved. Like, it's just bad. You're always going to be that way. You're always going to be like that. I would say they're more like negative attributes. They're things that kind of take the positivity out of things. So, like, you know, like I said, if you don't listen well, people are not going to talk to you as much because you don't listen well. And part of having conversation and having relationship with people is sometimes you have to listen. You can't always be the one talking. So if one of your flaws is you don't listen well, or you have a problem listening to people. I'm not talking about following instructions. I'm talking about hearing people when they're speaking. you might want to work on that, becoming a better listener. It doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It's something. Sometimes weaknesses are things we've never worked on. Sometimes weaknesses are things we never really grasped or we never really mastered. And now that we're adults, now that we're older, we want to take that opportunity to improve on these weaknesses. And when we talk about weaknesses, I just want to go to another scripture on this, because weaknesses are something that we cannot look at in a way that it makes us feel down about ourselves or makes us, feel like, you're dropping the ball or something. You really got to look at weaknesses as an area where you can improve on. So I want to go to Galatians 6. And Galatians 6. And I think I want to do 3 to 5. So Galatians 6, 3, NIV reads as follows. If anyone thinks they are something when they are not, they deceive themselves. Each one should test their own actions. Then they can take pride in themselves alone without comparing themselves to someone else. For each one should carry their own load. So the reason why I wanted to read that scripture is, we really need to not put, and just to give you some context, this has to deal with, if someone falls or someone sins or someone makes a mistake, it's not our job to make the person feel more down. It's not our job or it's not our responsibility to help them fix or repent of that sin. What our job is to, really just humble yourself and acknowledge that this is a weakness, or acknowledge that there is something that you need to improve on. And it's your responsibility to take the action to actually do something about it. In other words, don't put your burdens of your flaws on someone else. So, in the last episode where I was talking about how we like to, we can have this blame game, we blame people for the way our lives turn out. And the reason that we do that is because we don't take responsibility for our own life. We don't take responsibility for our actions and the decisions that we make and the rules that we come up with and the boundaries we set. So in the weakness category, you need to humble yourself and realize, okay, these are the areas that I'm having a weakness in. I'm not strong in. But it's not anyone else's responsibility, and it's not anyone else's fault that I'm like that or that I have these weaknesses. And it's my responsibility. It's my burden. It's my responsibility alone to fix that. And everyone should be willing to do that for themselves. So self-examination, when you're doing your self-examination, be humble in that. That means don't try to make yourself sound greater than you are. Don't try to make yourself sound less than you are. Just be 100% honest in exactly what you are, who you are at this moment in time. Okay? It's like a snapshot of your life at this moment in time. Every time you do the SWOT analysis, it's at that moment in time. We're not talking about putting down the strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats that you had 2 years ago. We're talking about doing the SWOT analysis in real time. So make sure that you are, humbly putting the stuff down on that paper, humbly taking those notes and filling out these categories and just putting it just as it is, because this is part of the inner work process, and you need to be able to look at this again, like I said, to come up with an action plan, because it's no one else's responsibility to do this work but yours. So, that is the weaknesses portion, and weaknesses kind of tie into opportunities. So the weaknesses kind of tie into opportunities in a way that, okay, you know that these are the things, or let's say the disadvantages you have for being a better version of yourself, or these are certain flaws or negative items that you want to improve on. So this is why it's important to do the full analysis and not just say, okay, what's my strengths, what's my weaknesses, and okay, that's how I'm gonna come up with my action plan. It's also important to do the other side. And what do I mean by that? The SWOT analysis is broken out into two parts. So you have the internal side, and then you have the external side. So the internal side, they are the strengths and the weaknesses. That's the internal side of the SWOT analysis. When you get to the external side, those are opportunities and threats. And the reason why we call the strengths and weaknesses internal is because the strengths and the weaknesses are the things that you can control. These are the things that you have the ability to change. These are the things that you have the power in. So that's why I said it's no one else's responsibility to identify these strengths and weaknesses. You have to identify these things in yourself. You may use the help of friends. You may ask people, what do you think about me? What do you think my strengths are? You can hold a poll, a survey, and I'm sure you got some real people around you. They'll tell you the truth in a loving way, because they see that you're working on yourself. They're gonna be, excited to help, and it might even inspire them to do some inner work as well. So moving over to the external side of things, we're going to define opportunities. So opportunities are defined as external factors that could enable you to achieve your goals. Opportunities are like those things you want to achieve or change about yourself. It's an opportunity to grow, to be better. So personal development is really based off of opportunities. Taking the opportunities when they're presented, looking for the opportunities to help and assist you in your personal development, to become a better version of yourself. It's like, how do I identify an opportunity? You can identify an opportunity like this. It's the thing you need to achieve or change. So it's the things you need. So how can I say it? So let's think about it. So it's a beautiful thing to think about. So let's say you're a parent, or you're even a teenager listening to this podcast episode. But if you're a parent and you have a teenager that's a senior in high school right now, or even a junior in high school, they're college bound. They're about to go to college. So college is definitely coming closer now than ever. Now you're thinking about what opportunities you're going to take, what schools you want to go to, what careers you want to get involved in. What do you want to be when you become an adult? What kind of degree you want to obtain? So you're trying to figure out what opportunities you have, and you need to figure out what things you need to achieve that goal or to see that change. So you would be thinking about, okay, well, what career do I want to do for in the near future, for the, in the next 4 to 6 years, etc. Do I want to be a doctor, a lawyer? Do I want to be an engineer? Do I want to be a mechanic? Do I want to be an accountant? Do I want to be a marketer? Do I want to be, a coder? Do I want to do information technology? You're thinking about all the careers. So what are you going to start doing? You're going to start thinking about what are the things you like, because they always say you should work in an area that comes natural for you. You should work in an area, you should pick your career based on your strengths. If you're trying to make this a lifetime career or even a career for a long-term period, you want to make sure that you're playing on your strengths. So personal SWOT analysis can be used for anything. It can be used for personal development, which this would be personal development. You thinking about what college you want to go to. That's personal development. Not personal development, career development. You could use this as a career development SWOT analysis. You could use this as a personal SWOT analysis. You could use this as a business SWOT analysis. You could use this when it comes to decisions. Okay, what are the strengths of making this decision? You can get this as specific as you want. The SWOT analysis could be used in multiple areas of your life. So that's kind of what opportunities are. You have to think about, well, how am I going to achieve these goals? Like, okay, now that I know my strengths and weaknesses, what's the game plan for me to get more stuff added to my strengths, to get less stuff off my weakness list? Like, what do I want to see change in? What goals do I want to achieve? Because that's really what this is about. You want to achieve your goals. You want to think about your goals. And you have to constantly come back and check and make progress on those things. So opportunities are basically you coming up with a game plan. And these are things that are outside of your control. When I say outside of your control, meaning you can't control the courses that the school has. You can't control the degrees that they give. That's outside of your control. But you can take the opportunities that line up with your goals, that line up with your career goals, that line up with your dreams. We got to start dreaming again. We got to start getting back to the place where, you're thinking like when you was a child and you thought about, when I get older and why do we stop doing that when we get older? We can still do that. We can be in our 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and so on, still trying to achieve new dreams, new goals. It doesn't have to stop. When you achieve one dream, start another one, But, to each his own. But I'm just saying that's really the progress of dreaming. And that's why doing a SWOT analysis, not just once, you have to do this over and over and over again. And you can do it for multiple areas of your life. So I want to go to James 1, 23 through 25. James 1, 23 through 25 reads as follows. Anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says is like someone who looks at his face in the mirror and after looking at himself goes away and immediately forgets what he looks like. But whoever looks intently into the perfect law that gives freedom and continues in it, not forgetting what they have heard, but doing it, they will be blessed in what they do. So I came here because part of self-examination is you realizing the areas you're strong in, realizing the areas you're not as strong in, and then doing what is necessary to make those changes and adjustments to be better. So That scripture was really more about following the word. So that means following the instructions, following the action plan, following, do what the plan says. You know, my mother-in-law has this thing. I know it's really Nike saying just do it, but she says she likes it. She likes that phrase, just do it. Because she was like, most of the times we're thinking about doing something. If we had just did it, it would be done already. So that scripture is more about being a doer of the word. Not just a hearer of the word, but being a doer of the word. So that means once you've done this SWOT analysis, you've identified the areas of opportunities that's going to help you achieve your goals. And it's going to help you make the necessary changes that you need, that you want, that you have to make to work on yourself. Just do it. Just get it done. Just do it. Take the steps. Because if you look at this SWOT analysis and you see the areas, that you need to change, and you just say, oh, well, I was meant to be this way. Like, sometimes you hear people say it, and I'm not coming at you. I just want you to really hear it from another perspective. And they'll say, well, it was just meant to be this way. This is just the way. That's kind of like throwing in the towel. So when some people say, oh, I didn't do anything, that's still a decision. To do nothing is still a decision. So if you look at this SWOT analysis and you say, you know what, I don't have nothing I need to change, that's the decision that you're making. The SWOT analysis did not, inspire you to make any changes or what have you. You're accepting yourself as you are and you're okay with it. Now, the only way that I would see that would be possible is if there's no weaknesses on the list. And if there's no weaknesses on the list, then what are the opportunities? And if there's no weaknesses, then what are the threats? Because threats play on weaknesses. And just to be 100% honest, I think that there is no way you could do this SWOT analysis and not have a weakness. 1 or 2 items, at least 3, like there should be something in that section. There should be something in that section. Even if you might think it's minute. A weakness could be you have poor time management. You're late everywhere. Even when it's something fun you want to do, you're still late to that too. So it's not that it's just when it's something you don't want to do. There's a disadvantage there. You just don't have good time management. That could be a weakness too. So people are thinking these weaknesses have to be like horrible or something. No, it's something you need to improve on. And poor time management is something you can fix. So don't see that you have poor time management on the list and then don't do anything about it. So that's the whole motivation and goal for doing the SWOT analysis. It's meant for you to see where you need to improve and to play on your strengths, because your strengths can sometimes help you identify the opportunities. You can also play on your strengths to help you improve on your weaknesses. So, that was the opportunity section. And now we wanted to define the last letter in the acronym SWOT, which are threats. So threats are defined as external factors that can interrupt or hinder your progress. So these would be the things like, that distract you from achieving your goals and blocks you from making changes. It's like the things, it's like the things that will distract you from achieving success. So you got to think about that. This is why I said the weaknesses kind of help the strengths The weaknesses play into the opportunities because the weaknesses show you where you need to improve. So it kind of helps you identify the opportunities. The strengths kind of help you to deal with the threats. So you play on your strengths to deal with the threats, but the weaknesses are sometimes how the threats come. Because, you know, sometimes, and this is why sometimes you got to be careful who you share everything with. So, you know, they say sometimes be careful who you share your dreams with, because this person you may not know. And I don't really like to call somebody a hater, but there's someone, I like to call them a distraction. And that's why when I initially saw the definition of threats, I was like, yeah, it's kind of like a distraction, something that stops you from achieving the goal. You know, it's like a roadblock. You know, people can sometimes be disruptors. Those are the two words I like to say, disruptors and distractions. Oh, you're trying to lose weight, and here comes this person that wants to go out to eat all the time. Or you're trying to go to the gym, and every time you go to the gym, this friend keeps coming over. Oh, let me tell you about my day. Or, oh, let's go out to the mall. Or they distract you from getting to where you need to be. And it's not like they don't know you're supposed to go to the gym. You told them, I go to the gym at 7 o'clock on, I don't know, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, they got something that you need to come help them with and do. This is what I'm talking about. These are threats. You know, threats are the things that play on your weaknesses. So if they know you love to shop, they'll say, oh, let's go shopping. This will be the day they want to go shopping, the day you're supposed to go to the gym. Or if you say, all right, I got to study, I have a final coming up, and the semester's almost over. I have a final, and now your friends want to invite you to parties and stuff. You're like, didn't I just tell you? Like, you see, this is why I said, when you identify, you know, when you identify each area of the SWOT analysis, this will assist you also in setting your boundaries. So if you know that threats are the things that are going to disrupt or hinder you from achieving your goals or having progress in areas, you got to do everything in your power to stop the threats. And remember, the threats are external. It means you have no control over it. What does that mean? When I say no control over it, meaning you have no control over the threats that will come your way. I mean, in business, if we think about this from a business aspect, when the pandemic hit, everybody's budget went out the window. No company did good that year. Like, when I say good that year, I'm talking about like good that year at sticking to their budget. They all overspent. They had to spend extra in cleaning supplies, testing supplies, temperature, thermometers, you know, to make sure that they could check people's temperature when they was coming to work. So you think about this. The same thing happens, you know, when we talk about natural disasters. You can't prevent a snowstorm from coming, a tornado, a hurricane, an earthquake. You can't, that's out of your control. That's what I mean by threats are out of your control. You can't control that your friend is going to come by and stop by your house when you're on the way to the gym, trying to prevent you from going to the gym. That's what I'm saying. But what you can control with threats is setting boundaries. So if you know that you have to study for a final, let's go back to that example. You will turn your phone off. You will turn the TV off. You'll have no distractions. You'll be in the library where nobody can distract you. Just like if you know your friend comes over to your house on days you're supposed to go to the gym, you could just go straight from work to the gym. Or you could change your gym schedule and don't tell them when the gym schedule is. Those are the things that you can control with the threats. So there's always parts of something that you can control, and there are some things you can't. And the external factors is you don't know when the opportunities may present itself, but you have to keep looking for the opportunities. With threats, you don't know when the threats are going to come. I heard somebody say the other day at work, and they were like, they said, it seems like when I try to save money, this is exactly what they said, that something happens to prevent them from saving money. The first thing I thought of was, that's a threat. They said their car broke down. They had to fix something on the car. They had an unexpected expense pop up because one of the children was sick. And then like this. So people trying to stick to their budget, and then they go off budget because of a threat. Something that they didn't see. It's like you can't see it coming. And so when it happens, all you have the power to do at that point in control is how you respond to the threat. So once you can identify your threats, and threats are kind of connected to the weaknesses. So if someone knows, what's one of your weaknesses? You like sweet treats. They'll always bring sweet treats in. And it's not because they're trying to, how can I say it this way? They're not trying to tempt you with the sweet treat. They just know you like the sweet treat because they know this about you, but you're putting it as a weakness on your list because you're trying to stop with so many sweet treats. They don't know that. So what I'm saying is the moment you decide, and this is something I tell my friends and family all the time. I tell them, once you make a convicted statement, once you say, I'm going to do this, an opportunity, will present itself to either make sure you do it, and at the same time, a threat will present itself to make sure you don't do it. And I know, like I said, I feel like it happens. And I believe that, Paul talked about it. When he was talking about every time he makes a decision to do right, the opportunity to do wrong presents itself. This is something that happens. You have to recognize this. You have to recognize that you have to be strong when you do this SWOT analysis and you come up with your game plan. You have to be strong in that you follow through, because each category in this SWOT analysis is real. So once you identify your threats, there are things that you can do to minimize those threats. But you can't come up with a game plan to minimize those threats if you're not even aware that those threats exist. So I just want to go to my last scripture for today. And that will be Matthew 7, verse 3 through 5. NIV reads as follows. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when all the time there is a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. So the reason why I am, bringing up that scripture, you see how it was saying, how is it that you can see everybody else's flaws, but you can't see your own flaws? And so you're so busy trying to help that person with their flaws, but you're not working on dealing with your flaws. So it's kind of So, in line with the last scripture we read. So you got to see that self-examination should not be a comparison thing. So you should not be so concerned about what flaws somebody else has in this process. You should be more concerned about the flaws that you have or the things you have to work on. And this is kind of what that self-love podcast episode was about. You really need to go deep and figure out who you are. Examine yourself. Fix the areas that need to be fixed. And it helps you to love better. All of this is the love mindset. This SWOT analysis is teaching you the love mindset with yourself first. So in Matthew 7:3-5, what that's about is you got to work on yourself. You got to lead by example. You got to work on yourself. You got to do that inner work yourself. And when you do that inner work, it's going to motivate others to do that inner work. And not only is it about motivating others or inspiring others to do that inner work, it also helps you to serve them better. Because now you can talk about it from a personal experience. So, I do this SWOT analysis myself. I remember the first time I did this SWOT analysis, and I would say the first year I did it. But the very first time that I did this SWOT analysis, I'm going to take you through the first year real quick, give you a recap. No one is going to be happy about the weaknesses section. And to be honest with you, it took me a while to come up with the weakness section. I had a few things on there, but it took me a while to come up with some extras. So I kept it 100% honest with myself. I said, I'm going to go ask my husband. I'm going to ask my family. I'm going to ask some of my friends, honestly, what are things that you would love to see me improve on? And I took everything that they told me and I put it on the list. There were some that I didn't agree with, but I put it on the list anyway. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to use this as a starting point. I'm going to put everything that everybody told me on the list in addition to the few that I had there. And I'm going to work on myself. I'm like, if this is the stuff that people are telling me, my grandmother used to say, if you hear something 3 times, you might want to take heed. She was like, if 3 different people tell you the same thing, you might want to take heed. So any shared flaws or, weaknesses that anyone shared with me, I made sure to put it on that list. I put everything on the list, but I made sure to put them higher up on that list because of that same thing my grams used to tell me, which is if at least 3 people tell you the same thing, yeah. So, you want to make sure these are people that you can trust and value their opinion. So that's another thing. I just want to suggest, I think strengths are easier to come up with because you know what you're good at. People tell you you're good at these things. Now, do people always tell you everything that you're good at? Not everywhere, but there are people that will tell you, this is what I love about you. This is what you do. I notice you do. Those are strengths. Put those on the strengths list. Weaknesses, sometimes those weaknesses will come out in the middle of a dispute or an argument or, a hard conversation with your family and friends. Put those on the list. And you can even just ask them, look, I'm doing some self-examination. I'm doing some personal development work, however you want to word it. But make sure it's a person that you can trust. Because a friend will tell you things out of love. Someone who loves you will tell you things out of love because you need to really change it. It's not because they have some hidden agenda and they want you to change something that benefits them. So make sure you're asking the right people. And as always, go back to the source of faith. So you can even ask the Most High, okay, what areas do you want me to improve on? Show me my weaknesses. Show me where I'm falling short. And he'll confirm those things for you. And he'll let people come and talk to you about it. He'll confirm it through prayer. He'll confirm it through someone, will say something and you'll be like, okay, I'd asked to learn about my weaknesses. Someone might point something out. But, in Matthew 7:3-5, it's really all about you doing that inner work. It's literally telling you, get yourself right. Get yourself right. So this is an important process, the SWOT analysis. And then opportunities, those are things that, let's say I was learning how to knit. I wanted to learn how to knit. And I found out that my sister's friend knew how to knit and crochet. Now, if you out there and you know how to knit and crochet, I'm going to just tell you, I haven't learned how to crochet yet still because I don't know how to increase one to go to the next row. And when I do the stitching, it just gets smaller and smaller. You know what I'm talking about. So that's a weakness in crocheting. So I haven't figured it out yet. But the knitting, I got down pat. I know how to knit now. And she was a wonderful teacher. I'm going to be forever grateful to her because she started my knitting journey. But that's an opportunity. So if you want to learn how to do something, you could put, I want to be open to new opportunities, as an opportunity. On the opportunity side, I want to be open to opportunities. I want to look for opportunities that are going to help me to achieve my goals. One of your action plans could be learning how to knit. You're going to look for knitting classes. You're going to look for someone to teach you. You might look up some YouTube videos. You might go to a knitting shop and take a course. But this is how you come up with the opportunities. You go looking for the opportunities that's going to help you with your goals and with the things you want to change. And then threats, you can identify those pretty easy, based on your goals. So if your goal is to go to college and get a degree, you know that the only thing that can disrupt that is you not doing good in your classes, you being distracted with your time, having poor time management, hanging out with friends too much. I remember when my husband was in college, I'm telling you, he used to take the TV out his room. I remember one time I came over to his house and I was like, what happened to your TV? He was like, I had to take it out the room. It was distracting me from studying and doing my work. Because Sundays, football season, he took that whole TV out. That was inspiration. Like, I was looking at him like, yo, I might have to get on that kind of level when it comes to my studying, to my college. I might have to go and sit up in the library where there's no TV. I might have to not watch my favorite episode of so-and-so. Like, it was motivating. But he identified his threat. And that was the point. So you have to really just go through this list and figure out what it is that you need to do. And when you identify these areas, you can come up with the action plan of how you're going to carry it out. And this self-examination process is important because this is how you're going to figure out, what you're all about and who you are right now in real time. So now you know what you got to work on, what you got to improve on, and what you want to do going forward. Now, how often should you do a SWOT analysis? Like I said, let me go back a little bit. So in that first year, I did my SWOT analysis initially. And I think the best time to do them in intervals is to do them every quarter. Okay, so that means you're going to do it 4 times a year, every 3 months. So it doesn't matter what month you start. The next SWOT analysis you should do should be 3 months from that date. So let's just say we're at the end of August. So let's just say you're at the end of August. So we're not going to count August. We're going to say you did your SWOT analysis like the beginning of September. So September, October, November, you might want to do your SWOT analysis in December, because that covers September, October, and November. So just make sure that you are doing your SWOT analysis quarterly. And the reason why I say quarterly, you want to see what progress that you are making each quarter. So, and another thing that I noticed, every time I did it each quarter, I noticed that the list changed. So there were some things that were still on like the weakness section. And I remember telling my husband, I was like, I'm kind of upset because some of the stuff on the weakness category that I thought would be gone by now is still there. And that means that I'm not doing a good job at working on these weaknesses. So I need to make dedicated time to working on these. And I think the reason is, and I'm just going to share this piece of advice with you when you do the SWOT analysis. The reason that the weaknesses, some of them will take a longer time to come off, is because you've been living that way for so long that it's natural for you to behave a certain way or to do certain things because you've always been that way. And what the purpose of a SWOT analysis is not to change who you are at the core. When I say the core, I'm talking about morally. If you're morally a good person, you like to follow rules, you have good moral compass, you're going to always be that, and you should maintain that. But I mean, this is something that you've been doing for a long time. So it becomes hard for you to like you have to make a conscious effort to really change these things, because dependent on how long you've been doing this. And I did this SWOT analysis, and so I've been doing this from like as long as I can remember some of these things. So to change that takes time. I don't want someone to think, oh my goodness, this is still on the SWOT analysis in the weakness section, and it's still here, and it's been 2 quarters. You have to give yourself the adequate amount of time to remove it. If you've been doing this for a lifetime, do you think it's going to take just, 6 months and it's going to be gone? You have to unlearn the bad things that you learned. You have to, relearn. So you have to learn what you probably already knew as a child, because children have most of this down already. It's somewhere between becoming a child and an adult. We kind of configure certain things, wrong. And I mean, like, if we're going to compare ourselves to like computers, which I do sometimes, because I do believe that the computer is mimicked after the human brain. You pick up either some viruses or some bad programming somewhere, and you got to undo all of that. Just like when you go get the antivirus protection, or you have to go take some malware off your computer or something like that, you got to take that malware off your brain, off your mind. You got to clean house. You got to do some work. So that takes time. So give yourself time when you are doing this SWOT analysis. So you're going to do the SWOT analysis every quarter. Give yourself time to get some of those weaknesses off. Some are going to be easy. Some are going to be harder than others. And identify your opportunities and minimize your threats. Okay, so if you know that these certain things can be threats for you, minimize them by minimizing the access to either the people, the environment, or the situations that can cause these threats to arise. Make yourself available for as many opportunities as possible, and look for as many opportunities as possible so that they can help you, in improving in the weakness areas. So, now that we have discussed all 4 areas of the SWOT analysis, I hope that this gives you a deeper dive into what a SWOT analysis is. and why you should do a SWOT analysis for self-examination. And hopefully this message has served you well. It has given you a different perspective to approach that inner work and to do that self-examination and to just develop yourself at your own personal time, at your own personal rate, within your own time, and at your own pace. So with that being said, I just want to thank you guys so much for listening to this podcast and spending this time with me. As always, I'm not going to take up no more of your time at this moment. I just want you guys to spend time with the ones you love and, really do that inner work. Make time, carve out time to do the inner work for yourself, because it's really going to have a positive impact on your relationships going forward. And, if you feel like this message resonated with you, or you feel like it can really help someone else, I would really appreciate it if you could share it. And if you could, like the video. It really helps the channel. It helps it to grow. It helps, the information here to reach more people so that we can all become better versions of ourselves and be better to one another. Well, guys, that's all I have for today's episode. I love you guys. And just remember, to let your love light shine everywhere that you go.